Hello, 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 and welcome. Have you ever looked at the top League of Legends players and thought, how the heck did they get that good? Well, I want to find out for real. Welcome to the Honest Climb. I'm going to document my journey from being a total noob to hopefully the top 1%. I'm going to talk about my struggles, fails. I'll break down the game, and I'm going to share my strategies, anything good and bad. If you want an unfiltered look at what it is really like, expect live streams, tips, behind the scenes, practice, basically just full transparency on everything on this climb. So whether you're a newbie or a seasoned player like me, if you love League and just want to see like what dedication and what you need to know behind improvement, hit the subscribe button, follow, and let's do this together. Oh my god. Wow.
What?
My freaking keyboard. Okay, focus.
I'm coming. Oh.
We're all good.
They did it. Jump.
Let's go. Woo! Man.
I don't know. Oh, he's gonna get me now.
With honest tips, he'll take you far. Whether wins or losses, he's always true. So come along, there's a place for you. Join the journey, climb a hill. In the world of pixels, he's leading the charge. With honest tips, he'll take you far. Whether wins or losses, he's always true. So come along, there's a place for you.
Beautiful.
Great job, team. There's a little doggy over here. What's better, tenacity or the slow reduction? Like Merc Treads or Boots of Swiftness?
Merc Tread, probably. Because that'll also help with Kari's Charm and Warwick here. For sure. He's also out of mana. And there's blue buff for you.
Lit.
Coming to save you. Plus 50 gold.
Let it go.
Wow, what a dominant victory. I needed to ask you, what does it take to hit the top 1%, in your opinion?
The way I grinded it, right,
Right.
was one tricking. But I one tricked a champion that's strong, right? OP. I went into it thinking, since my brother got he got master, I told him, I'm gonna get diamond in a month, right? I hit it in a month. I was like, well, if I can actually do that, then I could probably get challenge, or I could get mastery in another month. It took me 2 months, right? And it took me like, I don't know, 400 games or so, something like that.
Wow.
Something crazy. Like I just grinded a lot every day for 3 months. But to get to diamond, I didn't really like study anything. I didn't really care. I started watching videos like King Sticks.
Yeah.
Shout out to him. That guy. He just puts out. Let me see how he jungles Zac. So then I was like, okay, well he does it that way. I didn't really copy him, but like just the idea of like how he would gank and the little insight of like level 4 Zac is stronger than level 3 Zac, so try to get a full clear and then immediately gank kind of thing. Discovering like what your champion that you want to one trick. And I know you watch like Scenarius.
I watched Cenarius and Wuju Senshi.
One thing that super helped me was another YouTube channel called Skillcap. And I used to worship that channel, right? I would watch not only jungle, but like laning, right? How to read what a lane looks like. And then that would help me like to game. So like how to read lane. Is this pushing? Is this bouncing? Is this slow? Is it gonna freeze here? Right?
And what do you think was like because obviously you had been playing League prior to when you decided to like climb.
Yeah, I mean I played it in high school and then when I left my house. And then once I like built my own computer, I was like, I still don't want to touch League. So like I didn't play League for like 6 years or so.
So what would you say was like the biggest shift? Like, was it mainly just I want to beat my brother?
Yeah, I think so. Like, I mean, you gotta have a drive, right? And before that, I was just playing Fortnite. Didn't have MMR, didn't have a ranking system at the time. And then like, when I built my computer, the first game I played was Factorio. And then I bought Minecraft, right? So I was really trying to be a casual gamer. I didn't care about playing.
What do you think was the difference between when you got to like Diamond to getting to Grandmaster? Like, did your mindset change much, or?
The GM was crazy. I mean, I wouldn't even consider GM because it was just like every game that I played, I was just playing with a calm mindset, and I had good teammates, right? I had Hums on my team, Tyler One on my team. And I wasn't like tilting, and I was like, oh wait, these guys are on my team. I had to play against Double Lift. I was like, I'm just right.
Right. Because a lot of people would let that get to their head.
Right. I mean,
I'd say a majority probably would.
I would get to their streams and I'd be like, oh, I really want to hear what they say about me. But like, mostly if you're on the other team, like they don't really talk trash. But if they're on your team, like, and they gas you up, maybe I'm doing something.
Yeah, you're like, hell yeah, I played well.
Main thing, you see Twitch chat and it's like Giga chat this, and you're like, fuck
it. You're like, hey, they're talking about.
But yeah, so I mean, that was the climb to GM. I think I just got lucky. Right now, like this season, I'm not having a good time. Like I'm playing 1 or 2 games a day. I mean, it's an addiction, right? And like I know you like to grind it. You'll start playing and then you won't stop until 3 in the morning, 8 in the morning, kind of thing.
Literally.
Yeah. And
well, kind of. It's more like I'll like take stunt breaks between each 3-game block to like play a TFT or something, but then I'll go right back to it.
Right, and you're not really taking. Right, you're still on the computer and staring at the screen.
Yeah, yeah. So as much of a break as you can call it.
I mean, if you like, it's like saying I'm taking a break from gaming, but it's like I go from playing League, a game of League, and then I stop playing League. I play like 2 games of Deadlock, and I play TFT. I'm like, all right, do I want to play League again? It's like I've been sitting at this computer for the last like 9 hours. So I mean, one thing that really helps is like a good sleep schedule. Like
I have a dog shit sleep schedule.
Yeah, I mean, you gotta take you gotta take it for granted. Like, if you're in a good state mentally and you have the time to do it, then things can go really well. You know,
Right.
my motivation was like, I want to get some games in and I want to have a good day before I go to work. So how do I do that? Just don't tilt. Wake up. If I lose at 6 in the morning, my excuse is, oh, I'm still waking up. You know.
Fair.
But like, I literally the first time I got mastered, it was at like 7 in the morning. It was one of those blocks where I was just like, I didn't stay up that night to try to get it. I was like, oh, I'll just go to sleep, wake up in the morning, see if I can get it. And then when I got it, I was like, oh, like I did it. You know. Of course, like I screenshotted it, sent it to everybody I know.
And of course they didn't respond because they were all asleep.
Right, it was 7 in the morning, but like,
Granted, I was probably up, but everyone else was probably asleep.
I didn't know you at the time when I first got mastered.
Because I've only known you since you were masters.
Right.
And do you think I can hit the top 1%?
I've seen you crush games where it's like I mean you know you had that one time you had a meeting with MX.
Yeah.
LMX. And like after that it was just like something clicked, you know? And
yeah, I like went to scrims and like clutched up.
I'm telling you, like I was watching it and I was like, Jesus, like, and like who knows, maybe switching lanes too, like maybe jungle, maybe I mean I've seen your mid and like the Gallia worked, you know, like
that's true. And Akshan, I have a good one right on my alt with Akshan, but I haven't played solo queue in a role outside.
We haven't even seen like the support. You know, maybe you're a super aggressive player. Maybe you can play a Leona or a Nautilus. Your top lane, right? We saw the set. Like, there's so many options to League that you don't have to limit yourself to jungle Yi every game. You know what I'm saying?
It's true. And since I've played so much, I kind of have the baseline of a lot of champs.
Right, and like another thing that helps is like ARAMs. Like, you don't understand. Like, if you play 30 ARAM games, I think you like actually get better at the game, right? Like mechanics wise.
What's up?
What is up? How are we doing?
Fantastic. Been a while.
Yeah, it has been a while. Are you still playing League?
Yes, sir.
I've gotten drawn back to Riot's icy grip.
Yeah, dude. I definitely did too. But yeah, so I'm starting the Honest Climb, like actual YouTube series.
Okay.
Like
you're not gonna like my answers for any of these.
Oh yeah, no. I don't think many people will.
Because I saw you post a little bit about this, and I was like, oh, this is gonna be cool. But it's also gonna fucking suck.
Dude, it's gonna be miserable.
In the best way possible.
Because I'm basically gonna be playing like at least 6 games a day, ideally.
I don't think you need more than 3.
Really? You think I just do 1 3-game block?
Yep. I think playing more might be counterproductive based on what I know about you.
Fair. Because yeah, I've played 1 3-game block today, and
nice.
Hopped off. I was playing Ultimate Spellbook.
Yeah, I like that. There's a lot of value in limiting yourself, and kind of it makes you go into each game with a little bit more weight.
Well,
it's definitely a personal preference thing.
The one question that I assume a lot of people would wonder is what does it take? Like, what would you say it takes to go from being a noob per se? I mean, I guess
I'm going to give the worst answers.
Noobs.
So the problem with questions like this is they're so big, right? It's like, oh, like, how do I be better? And the answer is like a really big answer. It's like, you have to have.
So I guess really, what's the mindset shift? Because I think that's probably a big component.
Yeah, that's the answer. Is you have to have the right mindset. You have to have a better mental. If you have a better perspective than the people around you, you'll outpace them. So then maybe the question is, well, what is the better perspective?
Yeah.
Um,
Or like, what is like your mindset going into every game versus when you were like gold, bronze, etc.
And there are a million things that go into having a mindset, like a winning mindset. But one of the biggest aspects of somebody who just climbs is being really curious. You have to be really curious, especially in League. League is a game like chess where every move you make impacts the rest of the moves. So anytime anything happens, someone who's really good at climbing will be like, oh, okay, so this thing happened. What were all of the things that happened before this? And how do I think I could have changed them to have a different thing happen? Right, so this happens all the time where people will
like
they'll get upset at their teammates like dying to a gank.
Yeah, or they'll like lose all motivation to improve after like just a minor setback.
Yeah. But like, okay, so let's take a gameplay example where you're playing jungle and your bot lane dies to a 3 camp. And it's like, well, things happen that lead to other things. So you have to ask, how could I have known that 3 camp was going to happen? Maybe it's because they were playing a 3 camp jungle, like Elise or Lee Sin or Rek'Sai or Shaco, and they have a high threat support, and they have 2 melee supports. It's going to be a very bloody bot lane. It's like, we can know that's going to happen from the game's start. So from the start of the game, you have to be doing something to react to that 3 camp that we all know is coming. Yes. Or a dragon fight, or for my mid laners, a lot of times they'll be like, oh, I pinked my bot lane, but they died to my lane opponent roaming anyways. It's like, well, why did you let your lane opponent roam? And then they look back and it's like, well, because you took a shitty back, or you
exchanged a shitty trade, so then you were forced out of lane.
You took a bad trade, and you, yeah, exactly.
And so why would they stay in the lane when you're gone?
Exactly. So really, like that's the biggest piece. I remember when I was really bad, I had this guy who was, there's kind of a culture of improvement nowadays. We have a lot of, educational content creators. We had Nice, we got, like it's a whole niche of YouTube videos. We got Chris Curtis, we got podcasts, we have all this kind of stuff teaching people how to learn. Back in the good old days, like season 2 and 3 and 4, before we had all that, I had this friend who kind of got up to Diamond and Masters without really, he didn't do any of the stuff we talk about. Like we talk about reviewing and we talk about having a positive mental. This guy didn't have a positive mental. He didn't review his games. He didn't do anything that we think of when we think about like trying to improve. But whenever I played games with him, whenever anything happened, he would just make a remark of like, oh, if I would have done this, this is how this would have been different. He would take a trade and be like, oh, if I would have bought this item, this is how that would have impacted this trade. Or a team fight would happen. And he'd be like, well, I didn't like the angle I was at this team fight. If I would have backed a wave earlier, I would have been in a different spot for this team fight. And when you get into the habit of kind of reverse engineering situations where a thing happens and you think, well, what could I have done earlier to change it? You start to recognize patterns.
And those patterns, if you look at it, you'll be like, oh, I do this every game.
Exactly. Or like, oh, all of the sudden, like I was just showing up to team fights and I thought that they kind of happened randomly, but I'm noticing when I back, or when I can show up in my bot lane, team fights tend to happen. Or when I notice the enemy bot lane backs, they end up fighting a minute and a half in the future. Like you just start to notice these kind of causes and effects.
Yeah.
And that's what it really, really takes. It's just being really curious about how things happen. There's this very interesting phenomenon where you look at lower elo players and they think things are random.
Yeah.
And nothing in League is random.
Yeah.
It
It's
all
true.
comes from something. So, and like in a lot of my VOD reviews, a lot of times people will make jokes because I will prove this by making predictions. I'm like, okay, look, you're making a mistake here. This could cause this in the future. And then that happens. I'm like, oh, you watched the VOD beforehand. No, that's just what happens when you do that.
Pre-watched.
Yeah, exactly. It's a little bit of a meme. So, and it's a game of probabilities. So, like, there aren't such things as rules. Like, when X happens, Y happens. But it's more like a branching paths. When you decide to go down one path, there's now 3 different paths that it can split into, and there's a percentage on each one.
Like you're trying to guess if they're going to take the 80% successful path.
Exactly. And that's why we call plays high percentage. We want high percentage plays. Nothing's guaranteed, but that doesn't mean everything's random.
Yeah.
So that is like the number one trait. I'll just boil that down to curiosity / reverse engineering. And I mean reverse engineering because that's really how you learn these things. They have to happen to you. You have to be in a situation, and you have to be like, okay, what led to the situation, and what could I alter? And a lot of times you won't know what alter. Like, okay, let's say you're playing jungle and you decide to full clear towards top, and you're like, wow, this feels horrible. I have no plays to do. A lot of times you won't even know what doing a different clear will put you in. You just have to try it in your next game. So there's a lot of kind of trial and error, and then as you're trying things, you're reverse engineering it in your brain constantly. So that's trait number 1. I have a second trait.
Well, I wanted to ask, like, specifically with decision making, like, how do you balance the difference of like playing more aggressively, like for kills or for dives or for whatever, versus playing too safe and to avoid making mistakes or stuff
so that goes back to the trial, error, and curiosity. So if you lost a game because you thought you were too passive, the next game you better play. You better have asked yourself, where could I have been more aggressive? And in the next game, you better go try it. And so you should ping pong between the two constantly. And that's how you're going to kind of narrow in on the right idea. I view a lot of these things as a spectrum. And like on the far left, you have playing too passive, and on the far right, you have playing too aggressive. And in the middle is correct. The only way that you can find the middle is by bouncing from side to side until you get closer and closer and closer to that kind of middle correct point. There isn't such thing as aggressive play and passive play. There is correct play and there's incorrect.
True.
So whether you're too passive or you're too aggressive, you're wrong. So,
but if you bounce between the
right,
two, you can figure out what point you're playing too aggressive or too passive.
That trial, error, and that curiosity. So that's a really good question. It's like, okay, well, what should I try next time? Well, how did you lose this game? Try something else. And you might lose the next game, and it's like, okay, we'll try something else again, and that's how you're going to kind of narrow yourself in.
So when VOD reviewing, like what key thing like do you look for, like when you die, like what do you go back to figure out why that death happened?
That's a tough question, but let's say you died, and let's say you died from a gank,
right?
Like you tried to gank bot lane and you died. Well, then you think, okay, could I have pathed a different way? Could I just have not ganked? Like, could I have done something else with that timer? Should I have just backed? And you kind of just ask yourself all the different things that could have happened at all the different times and go from there.
So like if you died and it was because of like the enemy jungler versus if it was because the enemy bot lane was stronger, those could be two different outcomes.
You kind of just have to play out the potential differences. What would happen if you did this different?
Okay.
Which is, it's a very bad answer because it's a very broad question.
Well, I know that a lot of people have this, or like have a hard time with this, because I've seen it in comments, like when I'm watching streamers. Can you describe like your thought process during a team fight? Like how do you make a quick decision when like you're under the pressure?
I don't think at all. You cannot think.
It's got to be instinct.
It's got to be instinct. Yeah. So now we're getting into kind of like how do you learn things? But I always like to take sports as an example because it's a little bit more intuitive when you have like a basketball player. It's like, what do you think about when you're going for the game-winning 3-pointer? It's like, well, hopefully nothing.
Yeah.
Right? Like, I sure hope you're not like, well, if I hit it at this angle and I jump with 33% of my leg power, then the ball should go in. It's like, no, you don't think. You have feelings. You're like, oh, I feel good or whatever. You kind of get pulled in different directions from your instincts, but you can't think because there's just not enough time.
Right.
League is the same thing. There's not enough time in a team fight to have thoughts. So, ideally, you're just focused and you're kind of in the flow. And when you're in the flow, you have very little thoughts going on.
Right. It's just like in the book Relentless, when he talks to Michael Jordan. So Relentless is a book by Tim S. Grover, who's like the personal trainer of many of the greats in basketball. Flew out to see him because he was like, he flew all the way to him, and he was like, he flew all the way to me to say these, to hear me say these 2 words, like, don't think.
Yes.
Like, you know what to do. Now just go out and do it.
Exactly. So that is a kind of a conflicting idea with our be curious point, because if you want to perform optimally, you can't think. If you think, you slow yourself down.
Yeah,
and
your hesitation will get you to lose.
Exactly. So if you're in a team fight, and it's like, well, we've all played League for a long time. So if you're in a team fight and you're thinking, you're going to be worse. Kind of just period. So how do you manage trying to be focused while also being curious? So I'm going to turn it to you. And I'm going to say, what do you think?
I think that the difference being that you're thinking outside of game more so than you are in game.
That's
like,
a really good
point. Like as far as basically like when you're thinking about like what the correct play would have been or whether or not you were too aggressive, that's all hopefully happening in VOD review, not right before a team fight.
Beautiful. Yeah, I agree. Yeah, you don't want to be walking up to the team fight like, how could we have changed things?
Yeah. Yeah, like, should I be playing more aggressive here? Like, as you're going in. Like,
yeah.
Yeah,
exactly.
Probably not the ideal time to ask yourself that question.
Yeah, no, that's a really good point. I'll add that in your games, there are lull states you can also think. So maybe you died and you have a full minute that nothing's going on. That's the time where you can be curious and kind of ask yourself some questions and do some actual thinking. Or if you take a reset and you're walking back to lane, again, you're going to have 30, 40 seconds. So there are times when nothing's going on. But when there is action, you cannot think.
Yeah,
when you're
literally
laning,
just instinctively,
you're fighting.
You know who to go on it.
Let yourself express what you know. And then in the review, you can be like, oh, well, that was wrong for this reason. And then you can focus on that the next time.
Yeah, because then obviously the more times that happens, the more you'll know what the correct play was.
Yeah.
Well, what are the most like effective methods for like improving at the game, or like maybe like improving mechanics or game knowledge? Or
mechanics and game knowledge are at the bottom of the priority list. What I mean by this is I'm going to steal a concept from Coach Curtis. He has this pyramid concept, or is this pyramid of improvement. And it's a pyramid because the bottom layers kind of are the most important, and then the layers kind of build on each other. And then there's 4 stages. Stage 4 is real life stuff. Your mental health, physical health, your mentality. If you don't have a good perspective, if you're not curious, all of that stuff, that's real life stuff. Don't have your real life stuff figured out. If you're playing on zero sleep, if you're playing on drugs, like it's not going to go, it doesn't work.
Right.
So you got to get your stage 4 stuff figured out. Stage 3 is reference points, which is kind of another way to say win condition. It's like, okay, if I'm playing Master Yi, what does Master Yi do to win games? What are my strengths? What are my weaknesses? If you can really understand your reference points, then the macro and the micro will fill themselves in just by understanding like, okay, I know that my champion, Master Yi, I really want resets, which means I really want picks, which means I really need setup. All of your pathing and your mechanics and fights, they will fill themselves in once you understand that.
Because then you'll path in a way where you're next to Malzahar when he has ult, instead of running into
Exactly right.
an enemy
And
Malzahar with
when
ult.
you're curious about things, and we go back to that curiosity point, and you're like, okay, we look at this team fight. We're like, well, I really need a reset. And then you can go look at a team fight and be like, well, can I even get a reset here? If the answer is no, it's like, well, all of a sudden you can't be at Dragon. I don't care if everybody else is at Dragon.
Yeah, you
have
can't
to be
go
somewhere
in.
else. Yeah. And that all stems from reference points and win condition. Most players just will not think about strengths and weaknesses going into a game. And they'll focus only on mechanics, and they'll focus only on macro. And what I mean by macro is like taking good backs and wave management and that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And that stuff just doesn't matter compared to the stage 3 stuff. So stage 2 would be macro. That's, when are you backing? When are you doing that kind of stuff? And stage 1 would be micro, and that would be mechanical stuff. And it's pyramids, they all build on each other. But stage 3 stuff, win conditions and reference points, would be kind of like the most important piece.
So instead of trying to improve your mechanics and game knowledge, you should be focused on, obviously, sleeping, eating well, etc. And then understanding
so get a good mentality.
How you can win.
Exactly right.
Where the win condition is.
Spend more time. And so once you understand your strengths and weaknesses, you can start to spend time comparing your strengths and weaknesses to every single enemy's strengths and weaknesses. I'm playing Master Yi. I'm good at getting picks, getting resets. I'm good at dueling. I'm playing against Xin Zhao. Xin is really good at early ganks, early skirmishing, and that kind of thing. All of the sudden, you have a game plan. Like, okay, you're going to go get picks and snowball yourself on the other side of the map. Like, the whole macro game plan fills itself in. And then the micro necessities also become apparent when you try to go do that, and then if you fuck it up, you're like, okay, now you need to do micro stuff.
Yeah, because then you realize, I probably shouldn't have ran into the Leona. I probably should have just hopped on the Caitlyn.
Or I had a great gank and I just canceled 5 autos. And
yeah,
and it's like, okay, sometimes that happens, and then you need to just fix some micro stuff. But the way that you understand that, League is a game where everybody makes an infinite amount of mistakes. Like, there's just an endless amount of things that you can improve on. Everybody here can get better at their last hitting, at their cursor control, at their APM, at their camera control, at their map awareness, at their warding, at, just an endless list of things that you can get better at. So one of the biggest challenges is, how do I know what to spend my time getting better at? And the answer is in the stage 3 stuff. It's like, well, what does your champion do? And then, are you doing that? Are you actually doing that? Most people aren't.
Well, what? So, my final question that I have on here is, if you could go back to your gold self, what's one piece of advice that you would give to gold JS?
That's a really good one.
Because that's more personal. It's more like, what specific thing were you doing poorly that you basically changed a bunch of other things that led you to where you are now?
So I have 2 different answers, and they come from 2 different points in my career. So just to give a little bit of context in my career, I've played ever since I was a tiny little kid, since I was 7 years old.
Wow.
So my dad introduced me because he played Dota, right? And one day I came home, he's like, "Hey, you should play this League game. It's like Dota but for kids." And I'm like, "Oh, okay." I played it, and yeah, it was much easier for me to play at the time when I was 7 than Dota was, because Dota's freaking hard. It was just a lot.
And it's just hard to get into a game that's already established.
Yeah, it's really hard to get into. So
which I assume that's how people are with League now.
Yeah, I agree.
Because there's so many champions
these days. So many champions, and the average tenure of a League player is really long. Most of us have been playing for years.
True.
But yeah, so I got into League, and then I pretty much got up to gold pretty quickly. I think it took me a season to hit level 30 because I was level 7 and sharing my computer, right? And then I was bronze my first season when I was 8. But middle school comes around a couple of years. I have my own computer that I don't really have to share, and then I shot up to gold pretty easily. And then I was gold for legitimately like 6 years straight or 7 years straight, playing Aurelia only.
Wow.
Yeah, for a long time.
Why don't you still play Aurelia?
Well, I'm getting there.
Oh, fair.
She got reworked, is the short answer.
Oh.
She got reworked, and I quit. I quit the game for a while. And when I came back, I said, all right, we're going to play to improve, and we're going to see how far you can really go. And then I was able to go from gold to masters in about a year, a little bit over a year.
Wow.
And so that was kind of my journey. So if I could have talked to myself, like my answer is different if I'm talking to myself before the break versus if I'm talking to myself after the break. If I'm talking to myself before the break, when I'm still a kid and I'm just having fun, I would definitely tell myself to keep having fun, but I'd also tell myself to be consistent. What I would do is I would play a lot of games like on the weekend, and then I wouldn't play throughout the week. Where if you can just do a little bit every day, even if it's not playing, it's like, okay, maybe I'm really busy at school this day, but I can watch a GBay 99 video playing Aurelia or whatever it was at the time. Like that goes a long way, just being consistent. I had so many times where I would come back and I would have to relearn what I was learning. So consistency is really big. After my break, when I started to play for improvement, I had a period where I was like, it took me thousands of games. So I say a year, a little bit over a year, but it was maybe 3,000 games in that. And I spent maybe 1,000 of them being really hard stuck in platinum, it was before emerald. So it was roughly that like emerald skill range, which is a very common breakpoint for a lot of people.
Yeah. Well, that's about where I peaked.
Yeah. And it's very, very, very hard to get through that. And this sounds really cliche, but I would tell myself to mute all and to have a plan of what I'm working on every single game, and mute all so that doesn't get fogged up in my brain. Because what would happen is like people would ping and I would go to plays, or I would get flamed and be like, oh, maybe I should have gone to the fight. Like maybe he's right. Especially because I'd never played with emerald players before. I'm just a little gold player. I've been gold for years. These emerald guys know so much more than me. Right. And so I didn't really have the self-confidence. So
yeah, 'cause you had like imposter syndrome. You were like, I'm not an emerald player, I'm a gold player. So you were playing like such.
Where actually it was the opposite. It's like these guys have been emerald for years. and I was just able to learn my way here. I'm on an upswing. So, but really, the real takeaway there is I would tell myself, take responsibility for your own learning. If you're letting someone else impact your decision making, you're giving them the responsibility of your takeaways for the game. And that's not okay. So that took a lot of games for me to figure out that once you mute all, you cut out all the noise and you make your own decisions, you are more responsible. And when you are more responsible, you can learn more. Now that does mean you're going to straight up into games. That's okay. Everybody wins games. Yeah.
But you would also be the reason that you win.
And you're going to be the reason you learn. That's what matters.
True.
Because even if you let other people make decisions for you, you're still going to be the reason you lose some games, and you're still going to be the reason you win some games. The only difference is, who are you letting make the decisions? If you're making the decisions, you get to learn much more.
As for if you're just following someone who's assist pinging,
then they get all your
what
learning,
do you learn?
Right? Like exactly. You're giving them all your responsibility.
You're learning
and if you
shouldn't go to their assist ping.
Exactly. And it's not that you shouldn't go to their assist ping. It's that if you do go, it should be because you were planning on it anyways. So I would tell myself to turn pings off. Especially as a jungler. Junglers are really bad at this. They're like, la-di-da, full clear. Assist ping. Oh, okay, maybe I will go down there.
Yeah, dude.
You have to decide when you're going to gank first.
Yeah.
If a gank's not on your radar and somebody assist pings it, it can't be on your radar. Or you have just ruined your learning. And then you're going to go into your review and you're like, I shouldn't go to that, but I know I shouldn't go to that. I just went because he pinged. It's like, it's a waste of a game.
Yep.
It's a waste of a game. So that's what I would have told myself when I was really trying to improve and I was in the trenches.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah, that's definitely a big one. Because I make that same mistake. Like, I mean, I'm sure
it's
everybody does.
Not to. So here's what I've done as a kind of compromise. I've just turned ping volume down. It's like ping volume for me is like a fourth of all the other volume sliders. And so now I still have pings because they are valuable. Like if you play with no pings forever, you're going to be at a disadvantage. So it's something that you should, I recommend everybody try. Play a week of solo queue where you play no pings and just see what it does to you. But once you have them on, I play with them quiet.
Well, that's all the questions I have. And anything you want to add on?
One thing I will say is I would create journals. So like for me, I have some videos of when I was gold and platinum, like creating my plan to climb. I would love to see similar things out of you. And what I wish I would have done was create almost journals, like video journals.
Yeah.
Vlogs, I guess is what the kids call those.
That's basically what mine will be. I'm gonna have like specific like full blown like episodes like this that'll be like
and for me
whole thing.
I lost motivation because they don't get views because no one cares.
It's true.
But here's the thing.
They will eventually.
They will eventually. And they'll be so valuable when you do get to your goal.
Yeah.
Because you'll be able to point it out. You'll be able to be like, look, I called it and I went in the trenches and you can go see what I learned every week.
Literally.
So I just streamed mine. I wish I would have turned it into videos. That would have been, it's the one regret I have for my climb. So if you're gonna try to do it, I would love to see some like weekly journals. And for people watching at home, you can do the same just in a notebook. So I have notebooks upon notebooks that I've filled up with solo queue notes. So that is something that you can be very, very proud of. I was very proud when I filled up my first one. Proof of the work it takes.
Dude, I love that. Yeah, I was planning on making like episodes that will be like just an all-encompassing thing, and then in between like talking about struggles or little coaching session pieces or stuff like that. And so
there's gonna be a lot of struggles, and they're gonna be really cool to look at in the future.
Yeah,
they won't
future
do well
me will
right
thank
away.
me.
Yeah. I wish I had someone to tell me that as a content creator. It's like people aren't gonna watch these videos right away, and that's fine. But building good videos and then having the backlog, they will do amazing in the future.
Yep. Especially because like once you get to the place people want to be, like they'll want to know, wait, how did you get there?
All of a sudden, it's a whole lot more interesting.
And if you just say all of the things that you already know, like that doesn't really explain how you got there. That just word vomits your current perspective.
Yeah. Yep.
Versus if you could show them literally.
If you can show them, like, look, it sounds easy from the top. Like it sounds easy from where I'm at.
Yeah,
but
because you're
you don't
top 0.005% player.
Exactly. But the people who are just listening to this don't understand the thousands of games where I was negative win rate in platinum, just bashing my head against the wall, just suffering every day. Like, and I mean suffering in a good way, like suffering in that I couldn't figure out how to improve. I was having fun the whole time, but which is very, very important. Yeah. But people don't see that. And then they see these talks and they're like, oh yeah, it's really easy. It's like, no, it's going to suck, dude. It's going to be a long time. I think documenting that is a really, really special thing.
And also, I wanted to ask, side note that popped into my mind when you mentioned that you were an Aurelia one trick. Would you ever like advise changing champions to like try out something else?
Yes, I think that people should play the simplest champions that they can stomach. Let's say it that way because the simpler the champion, I think the easier the reference points that stage 3 we talked about earlier is to understand.
Right.
And when
so like if they're an Akali player, for example, then they would want to play something like Talon.
Yes. Or that I would recommend that. But some people can't handle really simple champions, so I give the caveat like, okay, the simplest that you can handle. You know, maybe Annie is too simple for somebody, but maybe they can handle playing Lux. Right? Lux is a little bit harder. She has a little bit more skill shots, a little bit more options, but still on the easy side. So the other thing is, if you played a champion for a really, really long time, climbing requires you to reinvent yourself. So you have so many narratives built up from playing a champion for a long time. So it may be a good idea to switch. So like for Master Yi, if you've played him for a really long time, and he's kind of a more complicated champion than people give him credit for, it may be worth to be like, okay, what are the simplest junglers that I would be comfortable playing for a really long time. For
Like
me, when I was playing top lane, I started with Irelia, and I tried every simple one. I tried Garen, Shen, Tryndamere, Malphite, and Garen, Shen, and Tryndamere are champions I play to this day. It's just what stuck. And I tried everything. Tried all the simple ones.
So would you say like Volibear pretty simple?
Yeah, Volley's a good one.
Or the new Skarner, or I mean, granted, those are like drastically different playstyles from Yi,
which is okay. That's
which is good. Yeah,
the change of playstyle isn't the problem. What needs to be at the top of mind is how easy is it going to be to understand this champion's strengths and weaknesses. So I would stay away from Skarner because he can almost do too much. But like Xin Zhao, champion's very simple with very defined strengths. You get early leads on Xin or you lose, period. That's a good champion.
So like Kha'Zix.
Something like, no, Kha'Zix's assassins are very complicated.
Ooh.
Very, very complicated. Which is kind of like Yi is complicated because he also has that kind of assassin stuff.
He's very an assassin. He's very much an assassin.
Yeah, so like Xin has a simple game plan. I think champions like Diana or like champions with other big ults are very much like Nocturne, I guess, would be an example of an assassin that's a little bit simpler because it's like, okay, if you're playing Diana, it's like you farm till 6 safely and then you hit big ults.
Yeah.
Like that's, if you don't do that, you lose. So it's like, that's a really simple champion that I'd recommend. Nocturne's kind of similar. It's like, he's harder than Diana for sure, but easier than Kha'Zix. Because again, it's like farm till 6 and then hit good ults. Now hitting good ults is very complicated, but at least you can narrow it down still.
And Volibear would also be a solid option?
I'd definitely call him a little bit more middle. Because he can do lots of things. But as long as you have a clear identity, like, okay, well, he's good at early game stuff, so I'm going to do early game skirmishes and early game ganks. That's what I'm doing. And I'm setting up my carries. He can be a good one.
Thank you. Where can people find you?
Thanks for coming out. I stream occasionally at Twitch under JSMethod, and I do YouTube stuff at JSMethod. I've slowed down on content a little bit, but I'm picking it back up. So just at JSMethod on YouTube, Twitch, TikTok, Discord even, and you'll be able to find me. Thank you for having me on. This is a lot of fun, and I can't wait to see the videos evolve.
Dude, it's gonna be cool. I think it'll be a cool experience to like just see for myself afterwards.
Oh yeah, it's gonna be again. I think that's some of the coolest stuff people can do is like set a goal, go after it, and then document how it is in the trenches.
Yeah,
and looking back on it, it's always cool.
Well, heck yeah! Thank you so much.
Cool. Thanks for having me. I'll see you guys later.
Peace. But yeah, that's it for today. We already did our 3-game block. We're chilling now. And we'll see you guys on the next one. Peace out.
The honest climb where the gamers thrive. Together we rise, keeping dreams alive. With every match we share the thrill. Join the journey, climb not hell. The honest climb where the gamers thrive. Together we rise, keeping dreams alive. With every match we share the thrill. Join the journey, climb not hell. In the world of pixels, he's leading the charge. With honest tips, he'll take you far. Whether wins or losses, he's always true. So come along, there's a place for you. In the world of pixels, he's leading the charge. With honest tips, he'll take you far. Whether wins or losses, he's always true. So come along, there's a place for you. Join the journey, climb a hill. In the world of pixels, he's leading the charge. With honest tips, he'll take you far. Whether wins or losses, he's always true. So come along, there's a place for you.